having Israel as an American ally is a very pragmatic, practical decision. I mean, Netanyahu's decisions, his actions, as sad as they are, and as many tens of thousands of innocent Palestinians that you can count, he's essentially taken three major adversaries to the United States and he's knocked them all back 10 to 15 years.
I'm very proud of the fact that Israel is the front line of this battle of civilization against the barbarism that threatens all free societies.
I just think it's very American, the whole thing.
The constant state of war, perpetual emergency, and perpetual support for Israel, which all seem to somewhat be interrelated.
Hezbollah is our enemy. Iran is our enemy. We need to cut the heads off of those snakes. Israel is a valued ally. We subsidize them $4 or $5 billion a year. We subsidize them $4 or $5 billion a year.
I saw the real enemy. And it's right here. The men who own everything.
But the problem I care about is making America the dominant military force on the planet in a way that's so indisputable that our enemies and adversaries wake up in moderate to extreme fear and go to bed in moderate and extreme fear. And that's what I care about.
They are cowards, laughing, singing, after dropping bombs on our villages, desecrating our women, killing our babies.
You're getting wealthy off of killing Palestinians with Palantir kills Palestinians with their AI and technology. Killing my family in Palestine.
Yeah. Can we get security up there? Can we get security up there?
Multiple American Air Force pilots are in military prison right now for refusing to fly to Israel and aid them with military gear.
I know a lot of vets who are conservative and progressive who have the same critique that I do, that it was all bullshit and it was all meant to make somebody else very, very wealthy.
I do not believe in invading foreign countries because of phantoms and boogeymen that our own government has created for the profit of the military-industrial complex.
Our soldiers, our boys, kill and die in a country does not belong to them, just so the old man wanted to keep their power.
We need America to wake up and prioritize Israel.
You can be democratic at home and ruthlessly imperial abroad. The most violent country in the world since 1950 has been the United States.
Why is there no war here in America? My country is always at war.
We need to make sure we stand by our number one ally in Israel.
So when you're talking about America first, jet fueling the economy and fighting for the working class, I'm just curious, like, how does this country, or especially like people in Kentucky, how do we benefit from giving Israel billions of dollars while people can't pay rent?
The answer is that we are now dealing with an imperial Israel.
And this aggressive, we're going to take over the world and put a military base in every country.
This can't be only on the Palestinians. The Palestinians cannot fight against the international capitalist system, which is their oppressor, wearing an Israeli mask.
Israel's a miracle. I stand with Israel.
I stand with Israel.
I stand with Israel.
I stand with Israel today and every day.
I stand with Israel.
I stand with Israel today, tomorrow, and every day after that.
With this pen and my checkbook, I provide ammunition.
So this is just another NGO of the Israel lobby, basically?
Right. These are all like tax havens. It's for money laundering, tax havens, and the weapons manufacturers.
You know, the president of Colombia said it that, you know, this is rich nations teaching us, showing us what they're going to do to us if and when we step out of line.
It's Zionism, it's power, it's capital. It's about telling very rich people exactly what they want to hear, and it is a great way to get paid. So I guess congratulations. Congratulations to all of them.
I want to ask you about the Palestinian people. What would you tell them about this peace plan?
Well, the beauty is we have some of the richest countries in the world. They control vast amounts of wealth, and they're willing to spend that wealth, great wealth, enormous wealth, and will be involved in leadership.
That's America for you.
I'm sure you've seen the latest theatrics around the ceasefire.
What ceasefire?
A ceasefire means Israel fires and Palestinians cease.
But from the beginning of the ceasefire, even leading up to it, there was a show, around it. When Trump was finger wagging at Israel, like, you must accept because Hamas accepted. And then Netanyahu came out saying, we must phase out our dependence on American aid. Like, oh my God, America's angry.
Israel has come of age economically. We can support ourselves. Thank you, America, for the economic aid you've given us. We're going to phase it out. We don't need it.
Like they're fighting all of a sudden. The fuck out of here with this good cop, bad cop routine. You're the same thing.
Whether it's me or the U.S. or it's, a proxy, could be Israel with our backing.
You gotta love when Trump just says the quiet part out loud that Israel's a proxy.
And then Trump announced, of course, the ceasefire, saying, everybody loves Israel again. Everybody loves it.
I spoke to Bibi Netanyahu just a little while ago. He called. He said, I can't believe it. He said, everybody's liking me now. Meaning him. He said, I said, more importantly, they're loving Israel again.
Which is actually very telling because this shows an acute awareness that they know the world hates Israel. That's why they're doing this ceasefire. So they can get us off the streets. That way, if we're protesting, it's like, what are you still protesting? The genocide is over. And they're going to continue to do it as they continue to do it now. And the most telling part is what he was telling him here. The world cannot fight Israel.
I said, Israel cannot fight the world, baby. They can't fight the world.
Meaning they know how much the world is turning on Israel, this project of theirs. But Israel, of course, doesn't care. It's almost like they're reveling in being a pariah. But the US itself is a lot more strategic than Israel. It's not as unhinged. They're very strategic about their little baby. Because Israel, you have to keep in mind, is not some foreign country. It's not an ally. It's a project.
The real geostrategic reality is the United States is using Israel to do its wishes. And it pays it to do its wishes. The person who told the truth, Savvy, was Lindsey Graham.
To the American people, wake up. Understand what we're fighting. We're going to stick with Israel because sticking with them is helping us. And I am with them. I'm with them to the bitter end.
You can tell when Trump called the families of the hostages in Israel. And they're like, thank you, Mr. President. It's like, are you their president? What the hell's going on?
Thank you so much. Blessed be the peacemakers. God bless you, Mr. President. God bless America. God bless America.
And also about the ceasefire, right? It's stipulated that the Israeli army withdraw, right? So they're withdrawing, but the US sent its own troops. It's like they're leaving and they're coming back with a different mask. It's like changing costume. What kind of kabuki theater is this? Even if you go away from Gaza and the West Bank, there's an outpost, an Israeli settlement, that now they just raised the American flag. You are the same thing. Israel is not a foreign country. Israel is an American project, American colony, a satellite state, garrison state, military base, whatever you want to call it. But it belongs to the US.
All right.
So this idea that the US is being coerced into supporting its ally because of shared values or whatever the fuck is just theater to conceal what's really going on behind the scenes.
I see where this is going. Israel's going to win. I believe the day of reckoning is here for the religious Nazis running Iran. That their terrorism is coming to an end. And it's going to be replaced by a region that moves together, work together to build economy. Build economy.
Israel advances the American interest in the region, and Palestine stands in the way of those interests. And the US has always been very stealth and sneaky about how it fights those who stand in the way of their imperial plans.
Пропаганда важнее всего остального. Я хочу, чтобы вы это поняли.
In 1951, the CIA set up Radio Liberty to broadcast anti-communist programs around the world. In Central Asia, the station was used to incite local groups, many of them Islamic by the way, against the Soviet Union. And in 1950s America, Senator Joseph McCarthy led witch hunts against left-wing activism, labeling it as un-American, communism, and a threat to national security.
Please look for connections to the Soviet Union and the Communist Party.
And very relevant to the story, he found very early bipartisan support for that, from Congress, from mainstream media, universities, corporations, and the courts. Careers were ended, lives were destroyed, and socialism in the US never recovered. All that because communism, or the Soviet Union, was standing in the way of the American empire.
They're Russians.
They are the focus of evil in the modern world.
Now, if we fast forward to today, support for Palestine is labeled as a threat to American security. And by American security, they mean American hegemony and domination. And just like last century, this label has bipartisan support from Congress, mainstream media, universities, corporations, and the courts. And just like back then, now support for Palestine causes careers to end and lives to be destroyed.
So turn around.
حبيبي كيف بدي اتصل فيك؟
Take Amy. Call Amy.
Okay. And what should I do? I don't know.
being anti-genocide or pro-Palestine is labeled anti-Semitic and a danger to Jews, which is insane because you're equating Jewish values with the destruction of Palestinian life. But the real purpose, of course, is to crush opposition to the political ideology of Zionism, because Zionism is what equates with the destruction of Palestinian life. The state of Israel aligns with the destruction of Palestinian life and removing Palestinians from the land so they can take it. And by positioning Israel as a foreign country, the US can pretend it's not them that's against Palestinians being on the land. Lately, it's become almost mainstream to say that Israel's dog-walking the US.
How much influence does Israel have on our country?
Israel's controlling our government.
Israel controls us.
Israel is in control of our government.
And it makes sense to make that assumption, because at face value, it does look very strange. Why is America so involved in this genocide? Why do they keep helping? But the point is, the US has always been involved in the destruction of Palestine.
If you think this is not our conflict, you've missed a lot. You've been like sleep at the switch.
It's just now it's coming in a very gross way. It's coming up to the surface thanks to Gaza.
For me, part of why Gaza is such an explosive issue for both parties is because it really exposes the core hypocrisies of both parties. On the Democratic side, you've got a bunch of people who claim to care about like democracy and liberal values, and here you are shipping weapons for a genocide. On the Republican side, though, you've got a whole movement who calls themselves America First. And pretty hard to square that.
But yeah, the truth is, it's always been the case.
Hello, I'm Ted Pike, and this is my wife, Alin. Today, a foreign government, Israel, operates the most powerful lobby in Congress. This is AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee.
And that's not because America's arm is being twisted into helping Israel. No, babe.
AIPAC is an American organization. An American organization.
This is an American genocide. It's carried out by Zionists, but it's an American one. It's a genocide that serves the empire. Yes, sure, individual senators and politicians are maybe being coerced or bribed or blackmailed, whatever you want to say. But if you zoom out and you look at the macro level, this genocide serves the American interests in the region. And to keep saying that Israel controls America is to absolve America of its role in the creation of Israel and funding it. And I get the need, especially for Americans, like of coming to terms with this, like, why is Israel controlling our politicians and our country and owning us? No, but babe, it's time to wake up. Yeah, it's the other way around. To pretend that the US, the world's largest economy and the strongest military, is being controlled by this tiny country that you're funding is delusional.
Israel is, if you think of when you were a kid and you like made the whole egg drop experiment in elementary school, you put an egg inside of something so that you can drop it from the roof. Everybody puts the egg into something because the egg is what they care about. Mm-hmm. The thing on the outside is the thing they don't really care about, but the thing that's supposed to absorb the impact of the ground. Mm. That's what Israel is for the United States.
Basically, we cannot forget what the US really is.
These are the people that dropped the atom bomb. Twice.
And the danger with believing the myth that Israel controls the US safeguards the elites who are really running the show. Not just American elites, international elite, but we're going to get to that later in the video, because this is not just an American colony. It's like a pet project of the rich, but we'll get there. Because you have to keep in mind, Israel is a project of the empire, the American empire, but it's empire in general. Because this started with the British Empire, and they handed it over to the US.
I am here today to ask you, my fellow Zionists, I would say to England, though I am only an American Jew, but an old-time reverencing admirer of Great Britain, I would say to England, if I could, an Arab Palestine is a threat to Great Britain and a menace to the world.
And actually, the US has always been trying to absolve itself of the responsibility by acting like, oh, it's just some innocent bystanders.
You can't move 5 or 6 million people out of a country and fill it up with 5 or 6 million more and expect both sets of them to be pleased. Something had to be done. We went ahead and done it and had it done, and now it's working out eventually.
It's like, oh, guess we have to, jump in and help out. And they do that so that when the shit hits the fan, they can make a run for it and abandon Israel.
Welcome to the United States of America, ma'am.
And the Israelis know that. That's why they don't trust the Americans. That's why they've made themselves indispensable internationally through surveillance and security and the arms industry and other means which we'll get into. Because the point of this video is that Israel is not just an American project. It's a project for the elite, the 1% around the world. It's a base. It's a base for them. First of all, you cannot argue against the fact that Israel is a military base. I mean, if everybody is a soldier?
I was in the IDF. My father served in the IDF for 40 years, my mom for 16. My brother is in the IDF now. My best friend, second grade teacher, back in the supermarket, my neighbors, my future children, basically everyone I know.
Your husband, your wife, your mistress, your brother, your mother, your grandfather, your child, your nephew, if all of you are soldiers, if it quacks like a duck and walks like a duck, then it's a military base. And I love how she's even saying, my children are going to be soldiers. Like they're already resigned to the idea that everybody, until eternity, they're going to be soldiers in this base. And by the way, when you watch this video with like her tits like hanging out, it's like, this is a recruitment video for all these boys that we see them travel from all over the world to come and serve in the Israeli military. These like barely like 20-year-olds who view Palestine as like some kind of a video game. These boys are being recruited, honey, because they think they can land and find one like this.
It's an idea of soldier.
Speaking of which, by the way, to bring it back to this idea that Israel is an international project, how on earth do you expect us to think of Israel as a foreign country when you have soldiers from different Western countries literally traveling to serve?
Switzerland. I'm from Sweden.
From Brooklyn, New York. From Los Angeles, California.
From Miami, Florida. From Palo Alto in the San Francisco Bay Area.
From San Francisco.
Arrived in Israel 4 months ago from Cape Town, South Africa.
French, British, Australian, American soldiers coming in to serve in the military. Yeah, of course, because they're Jewish. Again, hiding behind Judaism. But you see, this is a military base for the powers around the world. Because of course, Israel is serving the interests, right? But it's also their darling baby. They see themselves in Israel. They can never see themselves in Palestinians. It's like, you know when Western governments defend Israel? It's like someone talking about their son. Like, my son would never rape. No, that can't be. It's like it's like their child. He's a piece of me. Like, they can't see the humanity of the victim. It's pure racism.
Is killing 274 Palestinians, including many children, an acceptable price to pay for the freeing of 4 Israelis?
It's an unacceptable price, but I think it's a price that has to be paid.
If you're saying that to get free people from the clutches of horrible captivity, hostages, to free them, you have to pay a price, right? It's a horrible price. Does that ratio work the other way? How many Israelis can Palestinians kill in order to free Palestinian detainees? Can they kill 200 Israelis to free 4 Palestinians?
What I'm trying to say is, if you represent the Palestinian people, you represent the Israeli people, we look at this quite differently. I don't want to say...
I know you do, which is why I'm asking the question, Congressman.
And this racist nature of Western colonialism has always been the engine for Israel as a project. From the time the British handed over Palestine to the Zionists.
Winston Churchill said of the Palestinians, I quote, "I do not agree that the dog in a manger has the final right to the manger, even though he may have lain there for a very long time. I do not admit that right. I do not admit that a wrong has been done to these people by the fact that a stronger race, a higher grade race, a more worldly wise race, to put it that way, has come in and taken their place."
Speaking of British colonialism, I'm sure you've heard that Tony Blair, the man who should be in The Hague, is now being handed over the reins over Gaza. This man whose only accomplishment is cutting up Arab countries to serve Western oil interests in the region. This guy's being handed over control of Gaza. So once again, Palestine finds itself at the mercy of the Brits. But because we live in a different time now, colonialism takes the form of capitalism. You see, Tony Blair is now serving an international conglomerate of companies who are ready to go in like sharks, rebuild, cut up, take whatever they want. So this British guy, Tony Blair, is going to serve the oligarchy around the world. So instead of this like nation-bound colonialism, it's a project for the rich.
Last week, Netanyahu was in town with Trump. They unveiled a 20-point plan to end the war, built by Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, and billionaire Steve Witkoff, Trump's special envoy to the Middle East and his partner in a crypto company, by the way.
We're working with a group of people who have been working on master plans for the last 2 years.
So there are plans already.
It's not the West, right? Because it's not the totality of the West. It is a ruling elite of Westerners who are developing a new model that is going to subjugate people around the world.
And this is why I believe Israel is not just an American base, but an international project. Just look at Netanyahu being chummy with the 1%ers from around the world. What in the world? By the way, did you know that Netanyahu, who is actually a Polish guy who grew up in Philadelphia, was a close friend of the Kushner family and used to sleep in Jared Kushner's bedroom when he visited the family home in New Jersey back in the day? That would be the same Jared Kushner who's openly, for the last 2 years, have been talking about making Gaza, cleaning it out of Palestinians to make way for real estate development.
There are real fears on the part of Arabs, and I'm sure you talk to a lot of them, who think once Gazans leave Gaza, Netanyahu's never going to let them back in.
Maybe, but I'm not sure there's much left of Gaza at this point. I mean, Gaza's waterfront property. It could be very valuable to, if people would focus on kind of building up livelihood. It's a little bit of an unfortunate situation there, but I think from Israel's perspective, I would do my best to move the people out and then clean it up.
So as I was saying, in this video, I'm going to be making the case for why Israel is a precious project for the American international elite. And here are the main points that I'll be covering. The ally lie, basically how it is the US strongest ally, and why people still believe that. And then the moral cover story, this narrative about shared values between Israel and the US and also the West. And then we'll move on to talking about how it is the pet project of the 1%, and how capitalism is the new colonialism, and that capitalism basically has no borders. And then we'll finish off with how the pet project has a mind of its own, because now the West is not really in full control of the monster they created.
There's a lot going on in the world right now, but if you're on social media, and of course you are, because it's really America's only remaining news source, you know there's only one story going on, and it's Israel. What's even more interesting and maybe even more distressing is that in the U.S. government, the conversation, while much more muted, is a mirror of this in that a lot of the conversation is about Israel. Israel, a tiny country in the Middle East. Not critical to our national security, by the way.
So the relationship between the US and Israel has never been under question as much as it is right now because of the horrible genocide in Gaza.
I will not vote for a candidate that takes $1 from AIPAC.
It's interesting. It's interesting. I haven't thought about AIPAC. It's interesting. You're like the first to bring up AIPAC. It's interesting. You're like the first to bring up AIPAC, which is interesting.
Okay.
Which is just interesting.
Listen.
It's interesting you say that.
Okay. Fair enough.
Which is just interesting.
What's interesting about it?
I'm one of a handful of people that don't take corporate PAC money. I don't understand my Democratic
What
Party.
about AIPAC money? You take AIPAC money, don't you?
A minuscule percentage of my resources come from
I read it's like 800,000.
Most people now see through the BS narrative that used to tug at people's heartstrings once upon a time. The narrative that America stands by Israel because it cares about Jews. That narrative is laughable now.
Today, we are witnessing the rise of anti-Semitism around the world like never before. For many poor elderly Jews, their dream of making Aliyah one day and coming home to Israel is extremely difficult, if not impossible. But you can change all of that today for one precious Jew. Even in a time of war, the safety and shalom of moving to Israel under God's protection and his covenant promise to bring his chosen people home is why we're asking you today to partner with us. The cost to rescue one Jew and purchase a seat on an upcoming Fellowship Aliyah Freedom Flight is $710.
It's laughable because people see that the relationship is about money and capital. But it wasn't always laughable. In fact, the BS about the relationship went unquestioned for a very long time because of a very well concerted and very well funded effort to sell Israel to Americans. Sell the story of Israel as an ally.
Israel decided to set up permanent institutional structures to control how Americans would think about the Middle East. In 1983, Israel launched the Hasbara project, the aim of which was to ensure good press in the U.S. media. The goal was to train Israeli diplomats in communications.
But of course, it wasn't just Israeli officials peddling that narrative about Israel being an ally. It was also American officials doing it. And they've been doing it since time immemorial. I'm going to show you an example of how to sell that story very well by, surprise, surprise, the OG liar himself, Nixon. He lies so skillfully because he starts by presenting the case that Israel has this bipartisan support in the US and it's not even strategic, it doesn't even make sense. Yet we all support it. Oh my God, why? And then he pivots to saying, because of our shared values.
As I told congressional leaders during the 1973 Yom Kippur War, no American president will let Israel go down the tube.
All right.
Democrat or Republican, it's not an issue.
That is stated fairly categorically, and yet in your book you make it clear at the same time that Israel really is not of any enormous strategic value to the United States anymore.
That's correct.
So why then would the United States continue when there is no strategic value involved, or little strategic
Because the United States is concerned by more than strategic values. That's maybe a weakness, but it's the way we are. And there are moral issues involved here. We don't have an alliance with Israel, as you know. They're not an ally of the United States in a technical sense. It's a moral commitment. It's a moral commitment.
Who knew Nixon was a comedian? And this mythology about shared values between the US and Israel is powerful not just because politicians peddle it, but because popular cultural figures peddle it too. Take Charlie Kirk, for example, and his grieving widow. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about how authentic her grieving is because...
that man, that young man, I forgive him.
Wow, have you ever seen more convincing tears in your life? But I bring her up because of the very subtle way she weaves Israel into her love story with Charlie Kirk. Masterful.
I will never forget the time I was in Israel with my husband. Well, that was the second time, but the first time with my mother on a pilgrimage. And I was standing in the ticket line. And I remember looking behind me. And in the snake of the ticket line was a guy who looked very familiar. I had no idea who he was. And I told my mom, this guy looks so familiar. And as a typical mother, she said, go and say hi. No. We were late for our flight, and I'm not going to come off like a crazy person that's just weird. That ended up being Charlie. Nothing is by coincidence. Now, did we know that? No, not until we were like 3 months into our relationship and looking at timestamps, seeing that both of us were in Israel at the same time.
Speaking of all this cultural stuff at the heart of the Israel is our ally story, there's a great book I was reading while researching this video. Our American Israel by Amy Kaplan. It's a very insightful book, and it's made all the more interesting because it's written by a woman who used to be a Zionist and has done a lot of work to just disentangle herself from her Zionist upbringing. She analyzes the shared vision of Israel and the US, which helps create this myth that Israel is this foreign land connected through shared values.
The belief that America, ordained by God to lead the world, replicates Israel's messianic vision of itself. They share an open disdain for the quote-unquote lesser breeds of the earth, each tracing their roots to European colonialism.
There is no Middle East. You know that. There's tribes, there's villages. The nation state was created by the British and the French.
Just broadly, there are two templates that are used to bond Israel and the United States. The first is the mythic version of the settling of the West, and the second is the Bible.
That was the amazing Chris Hedges analyzing the book Our American Israel with one of his guests.
The title of the book, Our American Israel, comes from a 1799 sermon preached in a New England church, which says something like, America is the realization of the biblical Israel.
The book also analyzes the movie Exodus, which was such a cultural touchstone as far as giving Israel an American veneer. The film was starring blonde, blue-eyed American movie stars.
I was probably in high school, just beginning college, and when the novel came out, and I just remember everybody was reading it. You ride the subway in New York, and people were sitting there reading it.
Well, they said, so it was, I'll just read this, but Exodus is different in that it is not a story told by Israelis about their own country. That's very important, but one told by an American author for American readers, and then she writes later, one cannot overestimate the influence of Exodus in Americanizing the Zionist narrative of Israel's origins. 20 million copies were sold.
Do you see how valuable this project of Israel is to America? The efforts they go into selling it to Americans?
The main characters in the film, because of their whiteness, are easily seen as Euro-Americans. Meanwhile, when this film appeared in 1960, the majority of Jewish immigrants coming to Israel from Arab and North African countries, although not well treated by the European, Netanyahu.
And that's a whole other topic of how Jews who aren't white and European are treated badly in Israel. And actually, maybe it's not a whole other topic because of how Israel as a project is about the West colonizing the East.
So what you have in that film, and she describes it really well, is the Europeanization, the whitening of the Jew. No longer this sort of stereotypical, dark, pathetic, but this Paul Newman character who fights to the death and who is bringing civilization to the Middle East.
The same way Americans brought civilizations to the barbaric natives.
In order to colonize dark, chaotic regions and learn the way of the Indians, thereby ridding himself and the society he represents of darkness. It is the barbarism of the other, whether Indian or Arab, that forces the hero to become violent.
And this is what America and Israel share in values and why I think they are one and the same. Sure, you have the Jewish homeland as a nice cover story, but in reality they are both colonial projects. The parent colonial project and the baby colonial project. They see themselves in each other. And nowhere is this mirroring more nauseating than when American public figures come out in support of Israel. Speaking of nausea and vomit, there's this one interview that took place earlier this year between Dr. Phil and Netanyahu, where you see this colonial mirror reflection on full display. Dr. Phil, an icon of American BS, reminding Netanyahu that America's behind him. I watched that interview, and because I love you, I won't subject you to it, but I did give the interview an In Denial remix. You're welcome.
Welcome to Israel. I'm getting the sense this is painful for you already. You seem really agitated. What do you say to this rhetoric from the ICC that contemplate warrants for your arrest for war crimes?
I think it's absurd. It's a travesty. I didn't see them go after the Ayatollahs in Iran. I didn't see them go after Bashar Assad here.
We're probably going to be done here in just a very few minutes. So let's at least have a few minutes of authenticity. You deflect everything.
To take Israel, a democratic country that uses the highest standards of military conduct.
It's all a fraud. It's just a dodge.
A standard that no army has matched in history.
Do not insult my intelligence by trying to think that I don't understand how derogating your comments are when you make them.
And to put its leaders and its commanders and its soldiers on trial for war crimes is to make a mockery of the whole idea of international law.
Are you kidding me? You can be sarcastic all you want. You are committing a crime. I don't know what you have on your mind, but that's not happening here.
It's not only Hamas monsters that we face. We face the whole Iran terror axis that openly declares its goal to destroy everything you see around, to destroy us, to effect another Holocaust.
You have come on here and been phony and inauthentic.
And these people are particularly brutal and savage. I mean, what they did on October 7th is incredible. They raped women and beheaded them. They burned babies alive. And then they broadcasted it live, GoPro. They were proud of their, of their savagery.
I think you have said some things here today that are absolutely reckless. And I pray to God that you don't mean them, because if you do, you, sir, have a black heart.
I have to say that this is the worst savagery that the Jewish people experienced since the Holocaust.
If you cannot conduct yourself in an appropriate manner, then I'm going to invite you to leave.
Dr. Phil, thank you.
Don't let the door hit you in the ass.
Thank you. And thank you, America.
الله يسخطك أنت وأمريكا. Hey y'all, it's Indy, In Denial, and I'm no longer in denial about the nature of Israel as anything other than an American colony. Just like America, its daddy. Israel speaks the same colonial language, hiding behind noble-sounding words when they kill, occupy, and oppress.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to war, and it will not be easy, but we have truth and justice on our side.
That's a clip from one of my favorite TV shows that I've been referencing since the beginning of this video. It's called The Americans. It's about two Russian spies posing as an American couple in DC in order to spy on the American government. I love this show so much that I've seen it 3 or 4 times, and most recently now during the genocide. And because the main characters are two Russian spies hell-bent on bringing down the American empire, and because it's written and acted so well, America is seen through the eyes of its enemies, and boy, is it satisfying. Actually, the show offers a very biting critique of American culture and its capitalist nature and how it uses consumerism to numb its people. Something it has sadly exported all around the world.
Nothing beats American fast food. It's probably filled with all kinds of nasty shit that'll kill you, but man, it sure tastes good.
This place, have food, have money, but not so easy to be happy.
And it's so interesting to watch this show again now, during the genocide, at a time where I'm waking up to the level, to the depths of indoctrination that I went through growing up. Indoctrination through pop culture that made me worship American culture and adopt American ideas, toxic American ideas about my own culture. There was this one sequence in the show where the FBI brings over a Russian spy who wants to now work for the Americans, and she's obsessed with everything American. Like, she can't wait to eat Snickers, and she knows everything about American media.
You know Newsweek?
Of course. Circulation 3 million. At my institute, we study all major American newspapers, magazines.
It reminded me how we grow up studying and admiring American culture, which is not accidental, because colonizing people requires colonizing their minds, first and foremost. And waking up to the depths of that mind colonization right now fills me with so much rage. Rage against parts of me that once loved the colonizer.
I mean, they're talking about opening a Pizza Hut in Moscow. You see the papers. The Americans eat it up. They want us to be just like them. I don't want to be like them.
It's so interesting watching the show again now, because every critique of America in the show, in my mind, rings as very true as a critique of Israel and what it does. They operate in the exact same way.
Fred, the Americans are getting more ruthless by the day.
Down to America's games in balkanizing countries and doing the divide and conquer strategy to take over. That's what Israel does in the Middle East. That's what they've done most recently in Syria, for example. Just tearing it up, and what they've been doing in Lebanon.
Anytime something decent or humane starts there, they can't stand it.
We can expose U.S. forces, show the world American hypocrisy, their bloodiness, their willingness to topple democratic governments.
So waking up to all this now, I realized that everything I've believed about my culture is something that the US and Israel has wanted me to believe about my culture.
I'm not letting them do that to me. I won't let them decide who I am.
And I know this maybe sounds so simple, but we're not those savage barbarians that they make us out to be. They talk about us as if we're like, incapable of having peace. Just like something in our DNA. Like, take for example how they talk about Gaza. When they talk about how the Israeli troops withdrew from Gaza in 2006. And look, they could have turned it into Singapore. But Singapore has its own army, has its own airport. It's not controlled like a prison from the outside. Very intentionally de-develop the country economically. You don't want it to develop. That's why it hasn't developed, because you control it. So this idea, like, we gave them a chance, but they don't want it. But it's very interesting because the idea of peace in the Middle East, according to Israel and the US, it's a peace where Arabs are submitting. They like us as slaves, basically.
There's a difference between peace and liberation, is there not? You can have injustice and have peace. Isn't that correct?
You can have peace and be enslaved.
Yes. So peace isn't the answer.
No.
Liberation is the answer.
But the bittersweet reality of waking up to all this, to waking up to the fact that you've been imprisoned mentally, is now, and between two cultures, it's like now you don't know what to do with yourself. You don't know who you are. It can be very destabilizing. You're never going to be fully Arab, whatever that means. Like, I love my brothers and sisters in Gaza, and I will do anything to help. But when I speak to them, I don't fully relate. Like, I don't have the same experiences. And that's not bad or good. It's just what is, right? But I'm never going to be fully like a Western person either.
It's weird. What? I don't know, just being there and being here now.
Like, I seriously don't feel rooted anywhere. And again, not to make a sub story, like, I love my life and it's fine. It's very fulfilling and rewarding. But just thinking about it is like, who am I really? For me, being Palestinian means you're stateless. Maybe that's not nice to admit, or maybe not a lot of people agree, but that's how I feel.
You already have your country. You can't understand.
And that's something this show, the Americans captured so well. And then add on top of it the layer of spies who are changing identity like masks, changing wigs and running for... Oh my God, I was in.
Is it hard pretending to be other people?
Yeah. Sometimes it's really hard.
Speaking of playing other people and disappearing into other people, I'm going to premiere a new show in January called Mental Pillness, where I'm going to play this woman that's locked in a mental asylum and she's convinced she's Britney Spears. And for that, I'm getting a whole full silicone bodysuit. and I'm working with a voice teacher to change my voice. We're taking it to the next level. So I'm linking the tickets for that. It premieres in January. I'm linking the link tree so you see the different dates. And I'm also linking a surprise night for Gaza that I'm doing on December 18th at the end of this year. I'm doing this a bit different than I do most shows where I'm just hosting. I'm inviting a lot of artists, but it's gonna have like a therapeutic feeling where we process our grief and rage and anger and all the stuff that I've been talking about, but also with a lot of comedy and music and dance. And we're gonna do some Debke, traditional Palestinian Debke dance together. And before we get back to the topic of this video, which is unmasking Israel as a project of the 1% of the elite, basically in America and around the world, I want to quickly thank all the people who've been donating to my videos in the last period and all the new members to the channel. Thank you guys very much. And one last thing, I want you to please take a look at the YouTube page of my friend Ahmed in Gaza, who supports his entire family. Just lovely. I've linked the page where you can support him as well as his YouTube channel to keep up with his life and see how he's rebuilding now with his family. Now let's get back to unmasking Israel. Going back to peeling that first mask where people still believe that America is looking after its ally. And they're rightly confused. People who still believe that, they're rightly confused about that. Because why should America be sending all its money to this foreign land?
Did you know that in Israel, when you have a baby, you get a check? And then that baby gets a check every month until it's 18, put into the mother's bank account. It's our tax dollars.
And that's indeed crazy making if you still think of Israel as a foreign land. But not so crazy when you realize that it's actually an asset, a very strategic asset. Think of it as the most precious base for the US.
What the fuck is this? What is 50 states, one Israel? I'm sorry, last time I checked, we lived in America and we have 50 states, and I did not consent to add one. Who voted on adding a state? You guys, this is totally insane. This is a conference in where all of our lawmakers, went to the Israeli regime so that they could go and renew their brainwashed commitment. Then you have this psychopath, this Christian Zionist lunatic, Mike Huckabee, the ambassador. He literally said to all the lawmakers, there are 700 Americans living in the Israeli regime. That's the size of a congressional district. I say when they come, welcome to the 436th congressional What the fuck? He's literally saying Israel is an extension of America.
That's why the US is determined to support Israel at all costs, because Israel is a continuation of American colonialism.
I think Israel's come to conclude that they can't achieve a goal of ending the war with Hamas that would be satisfactory to the safety of Israel, and if they're going to do in Gaza what we did in Tokyo and Berlin.
Because no matter how you look at it, after October 7th, the world for Israel has changed. Their notion of what their mandate is and what our borders and boundaries and lines has changed. They will go where they want, when they want.
Takes one to know one. Israel's colonialism is as American as apple pie. Actually, Israel is a continuation of American colonialism, but then you add a moral cover story on top of it.
They will go where they want, when they want, to make sure on October 7th never happens again.
There was a clip of a US senator being confronted by an ex-veteran who's telling him this genocide has to stop. And that senator, without missing a beat, saying nothing will stop. That's the real reaction, because this is their project. Clearly speaking with authority, he's sure, but then quickly pivots to the emotional story of protecting Jews.
I demand that you stop lying to the American people. Immediately. You will stop genocide.
We will stop nothing. We will stop nothing. You will stop your disruption.
Genocide in Gaza.
The only genocide that has happened since October 7th is the genocide that Hamas perpetrated against the Jewish people.
And the more you start to pay attention to how Israel is the continuation of American colonialism but with a cover story, the more you start to see it in how every time an American official is standing up for Israel on the global stage. Like Trump's envoy to the Middle East, that woman who looks like a Bravo housewife. Full on with the makeup and the hair and the plastic surgery. Vetoing every UN security resolution that stands in the way of Israel stealing land on behalf of the US. She's another conniving American politician who's hiding behind that cover story. She's wearing the Star of David everywhere. You don't give a fuck, bitch. You don't. Just listen to her speech exonerating Israel at the UN. The amount of time she pivots to this idea that Israel's being attacked by these immoral Hamas.
Condemn Hamas, the false narratives benefiting Hamas terrorists. Hamas started this brutal, what Hamas had done
Hamas, 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 but Hamas, 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 condemn Hamas. The worst massacre and kidnapping of Jews since the Holocaust.
Forget politicians, even if you go on the level of everyday people. Check out this video of this American girl. Just random American, blonde, blue-eyed girl converting to Judaism in a ceremony where she's crying, and now she's gonna go to Palestine and take people's homes. You're just an American girl who decided to have a ceremony where you become something else that will allow you to travel and take someone's land. That's colonialism. Masked with a story. You're converting. You're not even like, I understand if you're an American Jew, you grew up with that story. It's in you, it's in your psyche. But you literally did not grow up with it. You're just converting to go take someone's country.
אני מקבלת על עצמי לשמור ולקיים את כל מצוות התורה ואת כל מצוות חכמים אני לשמה ישראל
That one really made my blood boil because I can't even go to where my dad was born, where we're from. And this chick can just convert and go and live there. If that's not American colonialism, I don't know what is. But with a wholly moral cover story, of course. But why does the US use a cover story for colonialism? Traditional colonialism fell out of favor after the Second World War. And then in the wake of the Holocaust, it got a makeover as Zionism, so it could be sold as the righteous cause of our time. Colonialism in moral spiritual drag, basically. They slapped a religion onto a colonial project. And again, this is nothing new.
I believe that our nation has a moral commitment to the continued existence of Israel as a nation. And I actually believe that right now, if I may turn it to even a material approach, it's a two-way street. Today, in that very troubled spot on earth, where we know the Soviet Union is trying to push its godless philosophy down through that region, it is the presence of Israel with their experienced military there that is a deterrent to the Soviet Union. If they were not there, we'd have to have forces there.
Nice try, babe. You were already there and you're still there through Israel. But of course, the US's sponsorship of a highly militarized Israel state in the oil-rich Middle East had to be positioned as something designed to liberate the Jewish people.
I think it is a moral commitment. Yes, I do believe that Israel is intended to be a nation.
And so the destruction of the Palestinian people and their land was justified because their homeland was needed as a Jewish homeland. And this American armed outpost, whose real goal was to bully its Arab neighbors into submission, was actually there to help the Jews. And that noble goal just accidentally happened to align with their interests. Just coincidence. And it's actually pretty genius, because if the US continued to do that without this moral cover story, it would look like colonialism never vacated the Middle East. And better still, that cover story had a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more the US armed Israel to violently abuse the Palestinian people and invade its Arab neighbors, the more regional resistance grew. And the more resistance Israel faced, the more the US had to arm it to face that resistance, to protect it from irrational, savage, Jew-hating Arabs. And it just so happened that this resistance took an Islamic face, but the resistance could have taken on any form, and it still wouldn't have been okay with the US. And of course, now the US can pretend that this violent form of political Islam is the cause of the troubles in the Middle East, when in reality, this political Islam wouldn't have erupted if it weren't for the US. Did you know that in 1952, the Saudi American oil company Aramco paid for the printing of religious propaganda in Riyadh? And did you know that in 1978, US Secretary of State presses his Ark of Crisis thesis, which argues that the US can reassert its power in the Middle East by encouraging political Islam as a counter to Soviet and Arab nationalist movements. So for those of you who have always believed that the US and its little demon child Israel have always hated political Islam,
your life is a lie.
But Israel is more than just a cover story for the US. It's also an insurance policy. Israel's role and purpose is to normalize atrocities against the global south and to give those crimes a moral purpose, while breathing life into Western colonialism's favorite narrative, a clash of civilizations between Western progress and Oriental barbarism. That the problems in the Middle East just come from two different ways of thinking that are just inherently incompatible. Like we Arabs are just inherently incapable of understanding freedom.
My father, my mother, my brother who died in the war. And all of us want a better future, just like you. Can you get that into your thick head?
I remember reading that book, Clash of Civilization, in the Lebanese American University where I studied. And also I was discussing it with a friend of mine who went on to become a journalist for Jazeera, and she's a Lebanese girl. And just looking back, I realized how much this stuff is part of our culture growing up as westernized and Americanized Arabs. Speaking of consuming American culture that makes you hate your own people, you know the show Homeland, which I unfortunately watched years ago, glued, and it didn't have the nuance that the show The Americans has. No, it's very black and white in who the enemy is. Here's this one scene from the show which interestingly takes place between teenagers, which is exactly the level of understanding that most Americans have about our part of the world. Well, before this genocide, I'll have to say that people have really woken up. But this is definitely very emblematic of how a lot of people think.
I think sometimes military force is necessary. I mean, the Iranian president keeps saying he wants to wipe Israel off the map, so...
Plus, the Arab religion doesn't value human life the way we do. And these Arabs believe if they kill us, they get to go to heaven.
Iranians aren't Arabs, they're Persians.
Persians, Arabs, what's the difference?
This scene, what's interesting about it, it just blends Muslim with Arab, with Iranian, with Persian, and yes, there is one critical voice in it, but that critical voice happens to be the daughter of a man who's now working for the terrorists. That's why she's objecting.
What do you know about any of this anyways?
What do you know?
Well, what if I tell you my dad's Undersecretary of State?
Yeah, well, what if I told you my dad's a Muslim?
Honestly, anytime I see how we are portrayed in American pop culture, I get so angry. But honestly, the best response is to just laugh at it.
Muslim people are not all Allahu Akbar boom, not like this. We are cute. We are Allahu Akbar, yes, like this. Not Allahu Akbar boom, not like this.
But back to that show Homeland, and how it portrays that the enemy of the US and Israel, you see Israel is less blended as one with America, is the bad Muslims, right? Now here's an appearance of one of the lead stars of that show, Claire Danes, on Stephen Colbert years ago, talking about American interference in the show, the CIA being involved in the show.
Okay, so now one of the things that you do you do this every season where you go get to spend some time with some actual spies?
We do. It's like the coolest part of my job.
Who sets that up? Who calls the CIA and goes, we just like to come in and hang out with you guys?
Yeah, so Henry Bermel, who is one of our founding fathers of Homeland, one of our writers, passed away a number of years ago, but his dad was in the CIA, and his cousin was a mentee of his father's and was also in the CIA, a very accomplished person there. And he recently retired. But in his retirement, he curates this week-long spy camp for us producers and writers. And
the producers and writers of the Homeland show at these guys who were CIA their whole life, they bring us to spy camp. What could possibly be the nefarious reason for them to do that? It's just for shits and giggles.
Yeah, so we park ourselves in a club in Georgetown and talk to, like, real spooks. And, you know, people in the intelligence community and the State Department and journalists and people who really...
What do they tell you that, like, what's the most surprising?
Journalists, State Department people, CIA spooks.
Yeah.
And writers for television shows, producers for television shows.
Yeah.
They all come together. Isn't that weird?
So this idea of a clash of civilization between America and its Muslim enemies is spread very intentionally.
I've been heading up a team of special ops more or less continuously for the past 28 months. U.S. airstrikes prepare targets for surgical intervention, initially against Assad, then most recently against the Islamic State.
But this is nothing more than the tricks of the empire.
What the hell is actually going on over there?
Using the holy and noble war on terror as a cover for their colonialism. And this is both the Israeli and American playbook.
You know, terrorism is a colonial language. For the history of colonialism, from the Mau Mau in Kenya, the ANC in South Africa, to everywhere, colonized people resisting their colonization, resisting their oppression, are considered terrorists. Because you don't want to give them the legitimacy. The minute you give them the legitimacy of guerrilla fighters or resistance fighters or nationalists, you're legitimizing their side.
And you know the word terrorism is a colonial term because it's a label. They just stick on everyone who's fighting their colonialism. And they remove that label when that terrorist agrees to play ball. Like the president of Syria, who had a $10 million bounty on his head This man is a literal terrorist, part of Al-Qaeda and ISIS. Now he's invited to the UN and he's described as just a man with a problematic past.
And I met the new leader. I was very impressed by him. And somebody said, well, he comes from a very tough background. I said, well, I'm not that surprised. It's a tough part of the world.
And the head of the CIA was interviewing him, telling him, I'm a big fan of yours.
How are you holding up under all this pressure? Are you getting enough sleep at night? Again, I've been there, and it is so very, very hard. And your many fans, and I am one of them.
Because he agreed to cut up and carve his country and hand it over to Israel. That's why he's no longer a terrorist. Because he's part of the colonial project.
Trump admits he dropped sanctions on Syria and on Jolani, the founder of Al-Qaeda in Syria, after a request from Israel. Watch this.
At the request of a lot of countries in the surrounding area of the Middle East, including Bibi, we took the sanctions off Syria.
Benjamin Netanyahu helped to create, popularize the idea of Islamic terrorism. It wasn't Western experts, it wasn't the CIA, it wasn't MI6, it was Benjamin Netanyahu. And this idea of Islamic terrorism came to replace the previous notions which were dominant in the West of Soviet terrorism. But where did this idea of Islamic terrorism come from? The place it really started was in 1984 in Washington, D.C. There was a conference by an organization called the Jonathan Institute, which for the first time had a panel talking about Islamic terrorism. But what was the Jonathan Institute? It was named after an Israeli paratrooper who was killed in the Israeli raid on Entebbe. And the Jonathan Institute was created by his brother. Does anyone know his name? His name was Benjamin Netanyahu.
And you have to keep in mind where that conference was hosted, in Washington, D.C., the capital, the American capital. Again, Israel is part of America, not geographically, but strategically. They always have the same enemy, and they frame it like they're both fighting backwardness.
There goes Israel and eventually us.
And their enemy is the same because their goals are the same, dominating the region, and the enemy is anyone who's standing in the way of that domination. I'm repeating myself, but it bears repeating. And that's why they frame Iran as enemy number one, as the head of the snake, that's just funding these terror cells in Yemen and Lebanon and Gaza, as if the Lebanese people don't want to fight for their sovereignty and self-determination. Like they're these just terror zombies being activated by someone else.
Hezbollah is our enemy. Iran is our enemy. We need to cut the heads off of those snakes. Israel, a different story. Israel is a valued ally.
American officials always talk about Iran as a threat to Israel, a threat to Jewish people. But in fact, Iran is a threat to America.
And I want the Iranians to know that if I'm the president, we will attack Iran. We would be able to totally obliterate them. That's a terrible thing to say, but those people who run Iran need to understand that.
Now, you could say Iran has its own aims of domination, but that's a separate subject. But the moral cover story that they're fighting Iran to protect Jews, it ain't it, babe. As journalist Jonathan Cook said, the measure of Zionism's success was in creating a politics of fear, creating the war on terror that could be used to manipulate public sentiment in ways that benefited the ruling class, the Western ruling class. That's why boycotting Israel is demonized as Jew hatred. Did you see that bill that makes it illegal to stop selling arms to Israel?
Anti-Semitic platforms like Gab have no place in Texas and certainly do not represent Texas values. What does represent Texas values is legislation like this by Representative King and Representative Copeland that fights anti-Semitism in Texas.
This is in America, a foreign country. And again, this is not just an American thing, it's a Western thing. And now it's time to start expanding the video to talking about how Israel is beyond just an American colony, but more of a Western project in general. Zionism's role as an insurance policy for the West was forced into the open in the UK following the surprise election of Jeremy Corbyn in 2017. Corbyn harnessed a wave of support for left-wing policies embracing a less colonial foreign policy. The British establishment, including the right-wing faction in Labour now, led by Prime Minister Keir Starmer, quickly settled on weaponizing anti-Semitism against Corbyn.
This is the story about a man you may never have heard of. A man by the name of Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff to the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Sir Keir Starmer. For a period of 3 years, Morgan McSweeney used Labour together to undertake secret projects to destroy the Labour Party under Jeremy Corbyn, secret projects that inflamed the anti-Semitism crisis that would undermine his reputation. Between 2017 and late 2020, Labour together accepted over £800,000 in donations from a series of multi-millionaires. Two of those people who gave the money were Trevor Chin and Martin Taylor. So Trevor Chin is a wealthy UK businessman. One of his animating concerns is Israel. For the last 30 years, he's been actively involved in pro-Israel politics. He's been connected and linked to Labour Friends of Israel. In fact, early in 2025, Treverchan was awarded the Israeli Presidential Medal of Honor for services to the country of Israel.
When you were Labour Party leader, were you asked to support Israeli military action?
One question I was asked at a meeting of the Parliamentary Committee, quite aggressive meeting it was, they said, would you agree now to undertake to support Israel in any action it takes? I said, what?
As a blanket statement, any
Blanket
action it
thing.
takes.
So I said, absolutely not.
Zionism is seen as so central to the Western liberal order that its opponents must be demonized and outlawed. Take, for example, other European countries like France, who pay lip service to the idea of Palestinian statehood. None of those countries actually intend for that Palestinian state to have any actual sovereignty, because that state, according to them, needs to be demilitarized. That is, to have no army or air force to protect its borders, and continue to be entirely dependent on Israeli goodwill for trade. What kind of state is that? So this recognition of a Palestinian state is symbolic, and that symbolism is for their benefit, not the Palestinians. Late last month, France's Emmanuel Macron let slip the quiet part in a groveling letter to Netanyahu. And he explained that the goal of recognizing a demilitarized pretend Palestinian state was to turn Israel's military gains at a regional level into a sustainable political victory benefiting its security and prosperity. Other supposed benefits would be Israel's normalization, designed to further integrate Israel economically in the region. For the West, recognizing Palestinian statehood is not about advancing Palestinian sovereignty or independence, or even ending the genocide. It's about preserving Western colonialism in the Middle East, but in Zionist clothing. So when you see all those European governments violently cracking down on anti-Zionist protests, you start to see clearly that the West, whether Europe or the US, will never punish its favorite child, no matter what it does. In fact, they fear the collapse of Israel, which is starting to show. It's not going to happen tomorrow or next year, but it's starting to show. And that collapse means the collapse of their control of the region. That's why they're cracking down so hard. They will never let it go because it's their pet project. And it's not just Western governments. It's the pet project of the elite, of the rich, regardless of where they are. Because when you talk about Western colonialism and supremacy, I don't think that's exclusive to white people. Whiteness, supremacy, and the chase of power is a state of mind. There's a lot of brown people who support Zionism. Take Shabana Mahmoud, for example, British Home Secretary. This woman of color has been locking up senior citizens in wheelchair who are holding signs in support of Palestine action, and actually promises to do more.
You are suggesting as Home Secretary is a response to limit particular protests that many people believe are part of their fundamental right to go and object to something they see in another part of the world that has horrified them.
Well, look, what we are doing is enabling the police to put more conditions and restrictions, and people will still be able to protest.
10 years ago, in 2014, this woman was marching in the street for support of Palestine.
Israel's actions, its killing of children, its bombing of schools and hospitals must be condemned without equivocation. We know what they've done is wrong.
I guess she got tired of slumming it in the streets, and now she's Home Secretary. Something to make her brown parents very proud. Look, Mommy, Daddy, I made it. I arrest invalids now. And then I get to have lunch with the powerful people who ordered me to do it. If my friends could see me now. I joke, but there's truth to the adrenaline rush that comes with being included in the circles of the rich and powerful. And the closer you look at all the parties that are benefiting from the genocide in Gaza, the easier it is to see that this Israel is a project of the 1% and the sycophants who want to be around them. Just check out this leaked email from a CNN producer to the Israeli ambassador to the UN. Hey, ambassador darling, how can I raise money for the Iron Dome? What the fuck? And she's sending this letter to the Israeli ambassador to the UN. You know that guy with the terrible dye job on his hair? Honey, if you wanna look younger, you gotta make it look realistic. This pitch black, it looks like a toupee, bitch. You look like ass. But back to the idea of Israel as a pet project for the rich and powerful.
In New York, we saw that some of the city's richest men were advising universities like Columbia, like the NYPD, on how to deal with college protests. Who asked them? You know, why are businessmen involved in this?
Why are businessmen involved in this?
It's a wonderful question. Why are they? I mean, why is Jared Kushner making statements? He's not a member of Congress.
And speaking of Israel as a pet project for the rich, when you look at how the rich and powerful protect Israel with this moral cover story as a distraction from their money-making machine. You really see that in how politicians around Europe don't even dare to say that their countries are more important to them than Israel. It's crazy.
I want a national unifying politics which puts Britain first, not Pakistan, not Gaza, not any other foreign policy thing, Britain first.
Not Israel? Well, not Israel?
Is that a fair point?
Well, my personal view is Israel is a very close ally and we should look after our allies.
We should look after Britain!
Unfortunately, Israel no longer feels that we are a reliable ally thanks to the Labour government. I care.
You started this by saying British politicians shouldn't be talking about other countries. I say ignore Israel. And they say, no, actually, no, they should be talking about Israel. You need to make your mind up. Do you know, in the last parliament, do you know what percentage of Tory MPs were members of Conservative Friends of Israel?
How many?
70%.
Hangt de Israëlische vlag nog steeds bij de BV?
Hoezo?
Ja, ik vraag me altijd af, wie staat er nou echt op één? Israël of Nederland?
Ja, ik ga lekker eten, jongen, als je het lekker vindt.
Israël of Nederland?
Maar ik ga eten.
Lijkt me best een makkelijke vraag, toch? Jullie zijn de Nederlandse partij.
Can you imagine? You're not even allowed to say that the government for whom you work, your own government, is more important to you than Israel. You can't even say it. It's insane. It makes you wonder, like, what is on the line? And let's leave Europe. Let's go to countries that are officially against Israel, right? The rich and powerful, again, are in lockstep with Israel. I mean, just look at this activist who's being arrested in Islamabad, Pakistan, for supporting Palestine. Pakistan, which according to the West is like the hotbed of Islamic terrorism, supposedly hell-bent on annihilating Jews.
Pakistan over the last several days has massacred hundreds, maybe even more than that, of pro-Palestine protesters. Wow. Coinciding with Shehbaz Sharif, the Pakistan Prime Minister, going to Egypt to nominate Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. Right.
I think we are seeing really disturbing language from the Pakistani state about Israel. We've started to hear things like two-state solution. Pakistan has never believed in a two-state solution. Pakistan's position has always been the right of return of all Palestinians to their homeland, and a state without occupation and apartheid with equal rights for all. So to suddenly start hearing about two-state is really disturbing.
And Pakistan, according to Israeli newspaper Haaretz, buys spying technology from Israel to spy on its own citizens. You see how we are being sold a story of like enemies of the West, when in fact they're all in on it together, the rich and powerful. And somehow Israel seems to be always the connecting points between those rich and powerful, thanks to its security and surveillance. Speaking of international surveillance in the billionaire elite, I'm sure you heard of Palantir, the American company that builds data analytics platforms for government agencies. Spying, basically. Its co-founders are either devout Zionists or they always just automatically defer to Israel. This company is worth over $400 billion and just happens to have the same goals as Israel and the US in taking out Iran. And one of its co-founders, the co-founders of this company, was brazen enough to get on TV and call for regime change in Iran. Who are you?
You know, I work with a lot of amazing Persian people. I'm really excited to invest in Iran if we can get this country to be some sort of republic, not run by crazy people. And that's a lot easier than doing that in Afghanistan or somewhere else.
Well, so how much do you think this is about? We were talking to the Minister of the Economy in Israel. Is it about regime change versus just eliminating the nuclear threat?
Well, it's very clear that this administration says it's about eliminating the nuclear threat. That's their goal. I respect that. You know, when we attacked Iraq 20 years ago, even then I thought it was a mistake versus going after Iran. Iran's clearly a really evil regime. So I've been against the Iranian regime. I've been for freeing Iran for a long time.
And the other co-founder of Palantir has been gradually coming out from behind the shadows in support of America's imperial plans.
Primary way to create peace in this world is to scare our adversaries when they wake up, when they go to bed, while they're seeing their mistress. Whatever they're doing, they're scared. If you want to have peace in the world, that's how you do it. And that is our peace-giving offering this Christmas season to our adversaries. And our goal is everyone who does not like America, does not like what we stand for, does not like the West, is going to be scared and uncomfortable.
Basically saying they will do anything in their power to make sure American domination of the region stays intact.
We kind of just think these things that are happening across college campuses especially are like a sideshow. No, they are the show. Because if we lose the intellectual debate, you will not be able to deploy any army in the West ever.
And this man can then be seen sitting with the Israeli president, his co-founder of an American company, just casually visiting Israel, making sure their goals are aligned. Do you see what I mean? Do you see how Israel seems to be a pet project of the rich? And it also lures in all those who want to be close to power. That's why I think support of Zionism is all about money and capital. Yes, sure, some of them have an ideological bent, of course. But those ideological leaders like Netanyahu, they are smart enough to dangle power in front of the power-hungry elite around the world, to bring them in on the plans, because that's the only way you can keep this project moving forward, if it serves the rich. Because a lot of people who support Israel around the world couldn't care less about Jews or any other ethnic minority. But I think this pet project of the rich and powerful has a mind of its own. This project that they're all benefiting from is inhabited and run by people who have plans of their own. Very unhinged plans. And they actually don't care about anyone but themselves. And in fact, they look down on Americans who have been their lifeline all along. They revel in the destruction of America because it serves their narrative. And that goes from Netanyahu to the everyday Israeli.
Well, big catastrophe, and I'm Israeli, and I hope that now people understand what we have to deal with, the kind of people that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis.
It's like they want the world to suffer to prove their point. And who can forget Netanyahu's statements after 9/11 calling it good?
He said to the New York Times in an interview on September 11th, it's very good. You want to pull that up? New York Times, that's it.
Benjamin Netanyahu, the former prime minister, replied, "It's very good." Then he edited himself. Well, it's not very good.
Then he edited himself. Well, not very good, but it will generate immediate sympathy, meaning sympathy for Israel.
Not to mention how he was beating the drum for 9/11 before it even happened.
So I wrote a book in 1995, and I said that if the West doesn't wake up to the suicidal nature of militant Islam, the next thing you'll see is the militant Islamists bringing down the World Trade Center.
Check out this clip of an Israeli lobbyist in the US, an old one, so fucking war hungry that he's manufacturing consent for a war with Iran, citing, and correctly I might add, the US's long history for manufacturing consent for other wars. Again, proving they're one and the same.
Some people might think that Mr. Roosevelt wanted to get us into World War II, as David mentioned. You may recall we had to wait for Pearl Harbor. Some people might think that Mr. Johnson wanted to send troops to Vietnam. You may recall we had to wait for the Gulf of Tonkin episode. So if, in fact, the Iranians aren't going to compromise, it would be best if somebody else started the war. We are in the game of using covert means against the Iranians.
For the US, Israel is just a base that serves their interests, and they will move on once it no longer serves the interests. And Israel knows that. That's why they don't trust the US. That's why they keep spying on the US.
Because I think a lot of people really assume that these efforts on the part of Israel to interfere in the United States politics and media started after October 7th, but in reality, it's a long time in the making. I remember when we did the Snowden reporting, the NSA identified our great ally Israel as the single greatest and most effective threat for spying on the United States with their technology. You know, we give them billions of dollars, and yet they spy on us more effectively and intrusively than anybody.
Access Alert now on a new report accusing Israel of spying on President Trump. Politico's headline reads this: Israel accused of planting mysterious spy devices near the White House.
There are disturbing spy allegations against one of America's closest allies, Israel.
But Israel doesn't just distrust America. It loves humiliating America.
Just so honored to be sitting up here with, I believe, God's chosen for everyone. Israel and me being here in this is very sacred to me.
Speaking of Americans needing to grovel to Israelis, check out this clip of Mike Huckabee.
You are the chosen people, given a chosen place, for a chosen purpose. And if someone is angry at God, he'll be angry at the people who represent him.
When I first watched it, I was thinking, oh my God, how humiliating. But then I remembered the whole end times theory that they have. Like these Christian Zionists, they're loving what's happening now, all the chaos and destruction, because it serves their own unhinged vision. These people are all using each other.
I mean, there is no direct biblical passage that can be used to call Americans the chosen people. And so that identification with Israel becomes a way to essentially bridge that gap.
But who's actually being really degraded by Israel is everyday Americans, who are being abandoned by their own government, which is focused on Israel as a lucrative project as opposed to paying attention to its own citizens. And actually, even if it harms its own citizens, they still pay more attention to Israel as a project, because it's part of the military-industrial complex. And this disdain for everyday Americans by their own American government really shows up in a most gross way when the veterans, the soldiers of this American empire, are shoved to the side.
Hello, my name is Titus
Status with Department of State's Overseas Citizen Services. How may I help you?
Hi, my name's Josephine Gilbert. I'm a 17-year Army veteran and former intelligence officer, and I'm calling to report that Israel just attacked United States military veterans on the Global Samud flotilla sailing to Gaza to deliver humanitarian aid such as baby formula, water, etc. And I need to know...
You need to contact the U.S. Embassy in the country they were located in for assistance with that.
There is nothing that Mike Huckabee can do for the fact that Israel is bombing U.S. citizens. We need the Department of State to move into action.
You would have to contact the U.S. Embassy.
What is the U.S. Embassy going to do inside of Israel to stop them from killing U.S. veterans?
More information.
I don't need more information. I need the U.S. Department of State to call Israel and tell them not to bomb U.S. veterans. Excuse me, what's your name again? What's your name?
But to start winding down to a positive end, and speaking of these veterans who were abandoned at sea by their government and left to Israel to do what it wants with them, there's this one boat that was carrying doctors, talking to doctors in Gaza. Oh my God, I cried when I watched this clip.
It's our honor to stand by you. We cannot even imagine the work you do and how you are still standing tall after almost 2 years of genocide. It's really amazing to see you, and I'm happy to see you alive and in good health and still providing these quality services to your people. And hopefully we will meet you very soon. Jihad! How are you, Betty?
Just imagine all these people are willing to put their lives on the line for others. People laugh at them because they're risking their lives for this.
Wouldn't it be a nice world if nobody had to do this?
But they do this for the people of Gaza who have been abandoned by the world. Just look at this clip of this one woman who got so happy to receive baby formula for her child.
بديك تكوني عزيزتك قوية بعين الله ما نصبر الحليب للطفل هذا والله فرحت كثير فرحت كثير بس عشان الحليب للطفل والله العظيم.
Can you imagine that the Israeli government, with the assistance of the American government, are calling the people who are delivering aid to these people terrorists? In reality, Israel and America are cut from the same capitalistic cloth. And the world is starting to wake up to the harsh reality of Western colonialism. I, for one, cannot watch those movies anymore with American soldiers coming in to save the day. Ugh. Even seeing American soldiers as heroes is laughable to me.
When was the last time you cried?
Overall, I don't really cry. What about you?
Oh, when I watch military people coming home to their families.
After mowing down innocent civilians. You knew they've been tricked by their government to go there. And they will suffer a lifetime of unattended mental health issues.
That's what gets
But
me.
their dog's excited to see them. You're right.
Israel has officially ruined it for Western imperialism. We cannot see these kind of like narratives the same anymore, which is very ironic given that this project was there to legitimize colonialism, but it's actually bringing about its end. And my favorite thing right now is to see Americans waking up to all of this.
If you think America is a bad place, just remember, here we're still allowed to criticize our own government, just not Israel's.
Jokes aside though, we are at a moment of truth. We just witnessed 2 years of genocide, an American genocide, where the people being genocided were begging for our help. We just witnessed the political class and the billionaire elite unleash their dogs on us to stop us from helping those who are begging for our help. And they did that not because they have something personal against the people of Gaza, although hardline Zionists themselves might, but the billionaire elite doesn't care. But they view Gaza as a testing ground for what they can get away with around the world. Israel is their project of domination over the rest of us, and Gaza has awoken us all to that reality. It has awoken the world to the humanity of Palestinians. And tragically, it took a genocide to show the world that side of Palestinians. But now we can't unsee it. It's over for Brand Israel. Over. The only people who still support Israel are the brainwashed Zionists or the sycophants who are spineless cowards who just want to be close to the people in power. Luckily, these two groups are not the majority of people around the world. And that's why they decided to stop the genocide, because the global pressure is becoming too much. People flooding the streets, one fleet of flotillas after another, boycotts. That's why we shouldn't let the ceasefire and break distract us from the main goal, which is holding Israel and those who run it to account. Never stop boycotting. Never forget what Palestine has shown us.
ليش بدك تضلك بغزة؟ خلص.
The way that they have reacted to Palestine, the enormous efforts they made to censor and silence Palestine, should tell us they have given away their big weakness. Palestine is the weak link in this system. This is our key to freedom. Palestine is. When we say free Palestine, we also say, let's put an end to vicious, brutal, monstrous capitalism. When we say free Palestine, we mean we want to have communities.